Hey everyone, John here from All Miniatures Great and Small, and today I'm going to talk about the Eastern Front compilation books for Flames of War from Battlefront Miniatures. Now the Eastern Front compilation is a compilation of mid-war books that cover the Eastern Front. So you have the Soviets, you have the Germans, and then you have their various allies like Hungarians and Romanians in the book. Now in a previous video I covered the wild card and kind of rare or unique vehicles for the Germans, and I thought in this video we would cover the Soviet side of it. So the Soviets I think are pretty interesting. I'm only going to go over 3 of their units in this video, but they are pretty cool. So let's start with the KV-3. So the KV-3 is kind of a hypothetical tank. There were plans for it, but it never entered any kind of production. In game, the KV-3 is a beast. It is a whopping front armor 10, side armor 8, top armor 2. So very similar to, say, an IS-2 of late war. The soft stats are, it's hit on a reckless, a 2+. So you're always hitting this thing. It does have a motivation of 4+, a counterattack because it's a heavy tank of 3+, and a last stand of 3+, which is nice. Skill though is only a 5+, but it does have that rear machine gun turret rule, which improves its assault rating to a 4+. So that's a 50-50 chance of being successful in assault. Now these bad boys are expensive, with on average them coming in at around 13 points each, but they are pretty worth it. Now let's talk about the movement stats. So it's a heavy tank, so it's slow. It's only got a tactical of 8 inches, terrain of 10, cross country of 14, road dash is also 14, and a cross check of a rather sad 4+. So you're going to be keeping these guys, you know, outside of woods, and you know, needing to take cross checks with the 4+. Weapons wise, this has a 107 millimeter cannon, which is 32 inches. It's only one shot, halted or moving, but it is AT-14 firepower 2+, with the overworked rule, which means if it's moving, it's 1 extra to hit. So it's a little bit harder to hit. It does have 4 dice of machine guns, which is pretty nice. A couple of these together should be able to have a good chance of repelling assault. So the main features of this would be, of course, that front armor of 10. There's still a lot in the German arsenal that can damage that front armor 10. You know, 88 high velocity 75 millimeter from like Panthers, 88, so you still have to worry about Tigers. But things like Martyrs, Panzer 3s and 4s, pretty much you don't have to worry too much about with this tank. Even from the side, this tank is pretty impervious to most like Panzer 3 and 4 vehicles that the Germans might face. So pretty interesting vehicle. So that's the KV-3. Next, let's talk about the T-43 hero or tank. So the T-43 was kind of a replacement, originally conceptualized as a replacement for the T-34. So it was going to be a new tank. But with the state of the war and with the Germans pushing and Tigers and Panthers and Ferdinands showing up, they realized that they needed something else. So the T-43 really broke into 2 branches at that point. The turret of the T-43 historically went to the T-34, and that's what gave us the T-34-85. So you had that kind of T-34-85 turret that will look familiar on this vehicle. And then the other one was developed into the later T-44, which we'll talk about it later. So let's talk about what the T-43 though brings to the game as kind of a hypothetical tank. So it is front armor 8, side armor 6, top armor 1. So it's increasing its armor. You know, it's pushing the bounds of what a medium tank is as far as armor in the game. Front armor 8 is great for medium tanks. It has a decent chance of stopping, you know, martyr shots. Anything AT-12, AT-11. You know, Panzer 3s and 4s are really going to struggle against that front armor 8, which, remember, becomes a 9 at range unless they're firing heat, which I think some of the Panzer 3s have that option. But still, pretty much impervious to Panzer 3s and 4s. So they are pretty scary with that armor. Side armor 6 is nothing to scoff at, which really helps in you know, assaults and potential defensive fire. The T-43 is hit on a 3+, so you got a little bit better crew than the tank we just looked at. Then we've got the soft stats of motivation. We've got a 4+, confident rating, but with a 3+ last stands. That's pretty similar. And then a skill of 4+, just a flat 4+. So it's 4+ in assault, 4+ for blitzing. So yeah, not bad. Speed-wise, even with all that armor, it's kind of like a light tank stat. It's still 12 inches of tactical, which is really fast. Terrain is 14, cross-country is 20, road dash is 24, with a respectable 3+ cross-check. So it doesn't have the 2+ of the T-34. Weapons-wise, it does have a 76mm gun, so nothing really to write home about. 24-inch range, halted 2 shots, moving 1 shot, anti-tank 9, 3+ firepower. So really, again, nothing too spectacular there on that gun. And the T-43 has 3 machine gun shots, which is nice. I mean, you can run these all the way up into a unit of 10, but that's going to cost you almost 100 points. So from there, you can kind of ballpark the price of these bad boys. So interesting tank. But we'll go with final thoughts on these at the end of the video. Next up is what I consider the coolest of the Soviet tanks, and this is a true wildcard unit for the Soviets, and that is the KV-5, which is just a monster of a tank. Let's talk about the stats, shall we? So this guy has a front armor 14, side armor 10, top armor 2. So that's amazing. I mean, for a mid-war vehicle, that's pretty impressive. And what front armor 14 does is that is a magic number that now you are impervious to 88s. Pretty much this tank is impervious to almost everything in the German arsenal except perhaps German new wildcard or rare units like some of the ones we covered before. AT-14 is just you know, just staggering, especially in early war. And side armor 10 is pretty good too. I mean, again, Panzer 3s, Panzer 4s won't be able to touch this thing from the side. All right, it's hit on a 2+, but when you have front armor 14, who cares if you're being hit on a 2+? If they're firing at you, they're not firing at the rest of your army, and the chance of them hurting you is not very good. All right, motivation-wise, this is a 4+ motivation. It has a counterattack rating of 3+ because it's a heavy tank, and a last stand of a 3+ as well. Skill-wise, it is a 5+, which is pretty sad, but because it also has a rear-firing machine gun rule, it assaults on a 4+, so 50-50 chance. Tactical-wise, or speed-wise, sorry, tactical is 8 inches. Terrain is 10. Cross-country 14. Road dash 14. Cross-check 5+. Don't take these guys anywhere near terrain where they're going to need to make a cross-check. Okay, and then here we go. We've got a 107mm gun, 32-inch range. This one is halted, rate of fire 2, moving 1, anti-tank 14, 2+ firepower. And then it has 5 machine gun shots, which is impressive. these are, even though they're hit on 2s, they are very expensive. But with those kind of stats, I would hope that they would be. With that high enough armor, your hit on value really doesn't come into play that much, except by super high caliber, maybe Stukas from the top with bombs. But yeah, it's just an awesome tank, and I gotta say too that it looks cool. It's such an ungainly beast. Now, out of the 3 things that we talked about, personally, what should you add or consider getting? Well, ultimately that's a personal preference for you. I think I'm going to be ordering the KV5, this one, the bad boy, just because it's so unique, so cool looking, and there's nothing in the Soviet list that kind of compares to it. So I think it would be pretty cool, and I think it would freak out any German players that might face it. Now, the next one I would consider, but I'm probably not going to order, would be the KV. What is that? The KV3. But really, the KV3 is, when you talk about stats, it's kind of like an IS-2 almost. So it's not doing anything that the IS-2 won't eventually do in late war. So, I'm not too, I don't feel a need to pick up that unit. The same thing with the T-43, a cool concept. It's a dead-end development path, but you could get quite a few of these in a list. Really, if you just have to think of them as kind of super T-34s, they still have a T-34 gun equivalent, but with much better armor, they're going to be able to survive the shooting phase a little bit better. But again, the tank's not that much different from a T-34, so I don't see a need to do that. And I might have mentioned in my German overview video that I do plan to pick up here I think the KV5s, and I have an order in for I think the Dicker Max on the German side for that wild card, or a rare unit, which I think is cool. But on the whole, just talking about these vehicles, I do want to acknowledge that there are some players that just don't want to play with these, and I totally get that, because they are not, well, they're historical in the fact that there were plans. Some of these reached the prototype stage and so on, but they weren't in regular service. So I would, and this is just me personally, would never play with these without talking to my opponent first. I wouldn't ambush a German mid-war player with KV5s without first talking about them and making sure that they had something theoretically that could deal with that. I don't like the ambush type gameplay. So talking to your opponent, which is something you should always do before the game, I think is good, particularly with these vehicles. If you want to include these ahistorical vehicles, talk it over with your opponent, and do it if they're cool with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't. If someone had a problem with that, they didn't want to play with those, they prefer a strictly more historical matchup, I'm totally game with that. But I think Flames of War is a big enough game that there's room to have fun with these crazy vehicles every once in a while. So, there's my 2 cents on that. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do consider giving us a like and subscribe. Click that bell to receive notification when we release new content. Also, if you like our Flames of War content, please do check out our Patreon, where patrons get access to a Flames of War battle report every month just for them, and including some Eastern Front battles. Then also, we have just recently started up our membership for YouTube, and there the idea is members can join, and there's a little join button down below, right by the the comments, where you can join, and that gives people who maybe don't necessarily are strictly Flames of War, but just generally like what we do, a way to support the channel as well. And of course, Patreon, YouTube memberships are ways to help us deliver the content that you guys like. All right, guys, well, That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again, and keep on gaming.